What if I told you that the name Lucifer never existed in the original scriptures? What if all our understanding of the fallen angel were based on a translation that hid his true identity for centuries? Have you ever wondered why certain biblical translations avoid using certain words? Why were some Hebrew names literally erased from the most popular versions of the Bible? The answer may be in a name that was considered too dangerous to be preserved: Helel Ben Shachar. Imagine for a moment, you are reading the Bible in ancient Hebrew, in the book of the prophet Isaiah. Suddenly you come across a passage you mentions, no Lucifer but Helel Ben Shachar, literally translated as morning star, son of dawn. His eyes wide. This is not just a different name, it is a completely new revelation about the nature and the original purpose of this heavenly being. For centuries, theologians, linguists, and scripture scholars have maintained this knowledge restricted to the highest academic circles. Why? Because understanding the true Hebrew name of Lucifer not only changes our perception of its fall, but reveals deep aspects about the nature of light, rebellion, and the divine plane itself. Think about it. If your original name meant bearer of light or morning star, what does it tell us about its original function in the heavenly kingdom? And most importantly, why did Latin translators deliberately choose this information, creating the name Lucifer we know today? The truth is that when we dive into the Hebrew roots of Scripture, we discover layers of meaning that were lost or purposely hidden over the centuries. The name Helel Ben Shachar is not just a linguistic curiosity. It is a key that unravels deep mysteries about the nature of good and evil, about light and darkness, heavenly glory and spiritual fall. Did you know that the word Helel appears only once throughout the Hebrew Bible? Only once. And this only appearance carries such a significant theological weight that it has forever changed our understanding of one of the most controversial characters in the whole biblical narrative. But here is what intrigues me most. If the ancient Hebrews had a specific word, unique and meaningful to refer to this being, why was it replaced by a Latin word that did not exist in the original text? Was it just a matter of translation, or was there something deeper at stake? Some scholars suggest that preserving the original Hebrew name could reveal truths about the divine nature that certain religious circles preferred to keep it secret. Others believe that the spiritual power contained in the real name was considered too dangerous for popular knowledge. Imagine the scene. You were a scribe in ancient Rome, responsible for translating the Hebrew scriptures into Latin. You arrive in Isaiah 14:12 and come across Helel Ben Shachar. Your hands shake slightly. You know this is not just a word. It's a portal for mysteries that few mortals should know. Then you make a decision that will echo through the centuries. It replaces with Lucifer. A Latin word simply means carrier of light, but loses all the depth and specificity of the original Hebrew term. And so, with a single translation decision, one of the deepest truths of the Scriptures was veiled to future generations, to this day, because today, right now, you are about to find out not only what Helel Ben Shachar means, but why this knowledge was considered so powerful that it had to be hidden. You are about to understand how a single Hebrew word can completely transform our understanding of light, darkness, rebellion, and redemption. The question that remains is, are you prepared to know the truth that has been hidden for centuries? Are you ready to find out why the real name of the fallen angel can change everything you thought you know about the spiritual battle between light and darkness? The answer is hidden on the oldest pages of Scripture, waiting to be revealed. And this revelation begins now, with a journey back to the Hebrew origins of one of the deepest mysteries of faith. To understand the truth about Helel Ben Shachar, we need to return to the year 700 BC, when the prophet Isaiah received one of the most enigmatic views of the entire Bible. We are talking about Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12, a passage that would forever change our understanding of spiritual fall. Imagine the scene. Isaiah is in the kingdom of Judah in a time of great political and spiritual turbulence. The powerful Babylonian Empire is at the height of his glory, dominating nations and considering himself invincible. It is in this historical context that God reveals to the prophet a vision that transcends the limits of time and space. In the original Hebrew text, we read, Eich enpelt ems shimim hil bin mouths, Eich nafalta mishamayim Helel Ben Shachar. Word by word. That means, how have you fallen from heaven, Helel Ben Shachar? But here is what is absolutely fascinating. The word Helel is unique in the entire Hebrew Bible. It appears only once in this specific verse, as if God had kept this name for a specific moment of revelation. Helel comes from the Hebrew root halal, which means shine intensely or emit resplendent light. But it is not any kind of light. It is the light that announces dawn, the first light that breaks the darkness of the night. Already, Ben Shachar literally means son of dawn or son of dawn. Together, they form a title that reveals the original function of this being. He was the announcer of divine light, the precursor of heavenly glory. Think of the symbolic depth of this. Helel Ben Shachar was not just any angel. He was the designated being to announce the arrival of divine light, to be the first to reflect the glory of God throughout creation. Its position was unique, special, loaded with cosmic responsibility. But Isaiah is not just talking about a heavenly being. Prophecy has a double application. It refers simultaneously to the king of Babylon and a much deeper spiritual reality. The Babylonian king, in his arrogance, was behaving exactly as Helel Ben Shachar before his fall, seeking to raise himself above God, wishing to be worshipped as a deity. According to Isaiah 14:13-14, the fall has happened because he said in his heart, I will climb to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will exalt my throne. On the mount of the assembly I will settle. I will be similar to the Most High. Helel Ben Shachar's ambition was not simply to rebel against God, it was to replace him completely. The historical context makes it even more intriguing. Babylon was known for its advanced astrology, its worship of the celestial stars. They were particularly worshipped Venus, the morning star, which appears brilliant in the sky shortly before dawn. Is it a coincidence that Helel Ben Shachar, whose name means exactly morning star, has become the object of pagan worship? Isaiah's prophecy reveals that what happened in heaven found its reflection on earth. The king of Babylon, influenced by the same spirit of pride that caused the fall of Helel Ben Shachar, also sought divine glory to himself. And just like his heavenly archetype, he was also destined for the fall. But here is where history becomes even more fascinating. When Greek translators created the Septuagint around 250 BC, they translated Helel Ben Shachar as Heosphoros, which means exactly a carrier-bearer, or the one who brings the morning light. The Greeks perfectly understood the original Hebrew meaning and preserved their essence. Centuries later, when Jerome translated the Bible into Latin, the famous Vulgate in 405 AD, he made a choice that would change the story. Translated, both Helel and Heosphoros as Lucifer, a Latin word, simply means carrier of light. But here is the problem. In making this translation, Jerome has lost the unique specificity of the Hebrew term. See the difference. Helel Ben Shachar is not just any light-bearers. He is specifically the morning star, son of dawn. This implies a specific temporal function. It was the being designated to announce the transition of darkness to light, to be the forerunner of divine glory that would manifest with each new cosmic day. What makes it even deeper is that Jesus, Christ, in Revelation 22:16, identifies exactly with the same symbol. I am the root and the generation of David, the shining morning star. In Hebrew, that would be Kokav Haboka, the morning star. Do you notice divine irony? Helel Ben Shachar wanted to be the morning star in his own right, but Jesus is the true morning star that brings eternal light. In 2 Peter 1:19 we find another echo of this truth, until the day clarifies and the morning star appears in your hearts. Peter uses the Greek word phosphoros, again, bearer of the morning light. The difference is that Helel Ben Shachar was a reflex created of divine light, while Christ is the very source of light. But there is something even more intriguing hidden in the Hebrew text. The word Shachar, aurora, does not refer only to physical dawn. In several biblical passages, Shachar represents the moment of divine revelation, the moment God manifests himself after a period of spiritual darkness. Jacob fought with the angel to the Shachar, to the dawn, Genesis 32:24. Psalmists have cried to God since the Shachar, since the early hours of the morning, Psalm 139:9. This means that Helel Ben Shachar was not just a being that shone. He was the designated being to be present in the most sacred moments of divine revelation. Its fall was not just a rebellion, it was the corruption of the channel itself, through which the glory of God manifested itself in creation. Some old manuscripts preserved fascinating rabbinic comments about this verse. They suggest that Helel may be related to the word Hillel, which means desecration or make common what is sacred. Is this a clue about the nature of your fall? Has it transformed the sacred into profane, divine light into spiritual darkness? The prophet Ezekiel, in a parallel pass over the cherub of anointed God, Ezekiel 28:14, uses language similar when describing this being as one who walked among the stones of fire, a clear reference to his proximity to divine glory. Although Ezekiel does not use the name Helel Ben Shachar, the description is unmistakably about the same heavenly being. And here is a revelation that few know. In some ancient Jewish traditions, there are records that Helel Ben Shachar's full name was considered so powerful that it could not be pronounced by the uninitiated. Like the name of God, WH, was improbable, the real name of the fallen angel also carried a power that was considered too dangerous for common knowledge. Now we come to the heart of the mystery. Why exactly the name Helel Ben Shachar was gradually erased from popular translations, and even more intriguing, would it really dangerous for us to know its real name? Some Jewish Kabbalah scholars believe that Hebrew names are not simply labels, they are formulas of spiritual power. Each Hebrew letter carries a specific cosmic vibration, and when combined in the correct sequence, they can access deep spiritual realities. If this is true, then Helel Ben Shachar was not just the name of a being, it was a key to understanding the very nature of divine light and its possible corruption. Think about it. Helel, begins with the letter He, H, which in Hebrew numerology represents the divine respiration, the breath of God's life. Following is Yod, Y, the smallest letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which symbolizes the divine spark, the point of origin of all creation. The remaining letters, Lamed, Lel, create a duplication that intensifies the meaning resplendent light, duplicate shine. Did the old translators understand that preserving this specific sequence of Hebrew letters, somehow giving access to knowledge that should not be widely shared? Some esoteric traditions suggest just this. To know the real name of Helel Ben Shachar is to understand not only his fall, but also the process through which divine light can be corrupted. Other theological interpretations offer a different perspective. Theologians like Origen in the 3rd century argued that the name was obscured not for fear of their power, but to protect the faithful from an inadequate understanding. They believed that fully understanding the original nature of Helel Ben Shachar could lead some to dangerous questions about the nature of God and his creation. Consider this disturbing possibility. If Helel Ben Shachar was originally the son of dawn, the being designated to announce divine light, then his fall represents something much deeper than a simple rebellion. It represents the terrifying possibility that even the purest light can choose darkness. Gnostic manuscripts found in Nag Hammadi preserved a fascinating tradition. They suggest that Helel Ben Shachar did not fall for simple pride, but because he discovered something about the nature of creation that led him to question his own divine goodness. According to this controversial interpretation, he would have seen the future suffering that would be allowed in creation and rebelled not by ambition, but by a distorted form of compassion. This interpretation would explain why knowing its true Hebrew name was considered dangerous, not because the name itself had evil power, but because to truly understand who Helel Ben Shachar could lead to questions about God's own nature that few would be prepared to face. Apocryphal texts like the Book of Enoch preserved yet another intriguing tradition. They suggest that Helel Ben Shachar had prophetic knowledge about the coming of the Messiah, and his rebellion was motivated by the refusal to submit to a divine plan that would include the incarnation of God himself. He would have seen that Jesus Christ would be the true morning star, and could not accept that his own position would be superseded. Ancient cultures around the world preserved surprising echoes of this truth. The Sumerians spoke of Inanna, the morning star she came down to the underworld. The Greeks had myths about Prometheus, which stole the fire light of the gods. The Egyptians worshipped Set, originally a god of light that became the lord of darkness. But perhaps the most intriguing theory comes from modern biblical scholars, like Dr. Michael Heiser, who suggest that the loss of the name Helel Ben Shachar was not accidental. It was a deliberate translation strategy to avoid religious syncretism. They argue that if the first Christian communities had kept the original Hebrew name, it could have led to dangerous confusion with pagan deities that were also associated with the morning star. Think of this complexity. In the early centuries of Christianity, religion was spreading through cultures that already had their own gods of morning light. The Romans worshipped Venus as Lucifer, star of the morning. The Greeks worshipped Esoteric. The Persians had Mitre as solar god. If Christians started talking about Helel Ben Shachar, the morning star, this could create a dangerous association with these pagan deities. But recent archaeological evidence suggests an even more fascinating perspective. Excavations in Qumran, where the manuscripts of the Dead Sea were found, revealed fragments of texts that preserve the name Helel in contexts that do not appear in the canonical Bible. These fragments suggest that the community of Qumran, known for preserving extremely ancient Hebrew traditions, had knowledge about Helel Ben Shachar that they were lost in other Jewish traditions. A particularly intriguing fragment, catalogued as 4Q510, contains what appears to be a protection prayer that mentions Helel and his mates of darkness. This indicates that at least for this old Jewish community, the real name was not only known, but was considered important enough to be included in spiritual protection prayers. Modern scholars like Dr. Ellen White and Dr. James Charlesworth raise a provocative question. Has the early church obscured the original Hebrew name inadvertently, lost important insights about the nature of spiritual war? They suggest that understanding Helel Ben Shachar as the son of the corrupted dawn offers a much richer perspective on how spiritual darkness operates than simply knowing it as Lucifer, the bearer of light. Consider this practical application. If Helel Ben Shachar was originally the advertiser of divine light, then his main strategy would not be to create obvious darkness, but corrupt and falsify his own light. This would explain why 2 Corinthians 11:14 says that Satan himself disguises herself as an angel of light. He did not completely abandon his original function. He corrupted her. This understanding radically changes our perception of contemporary spiritual war. Instead of looking only for obvious manifestations of evil, we need to discern between true light and falsified light. Helel Ben Shachar still operates as a son of dawn, but now announces a false dawn, a light that looks divine but leads to darkness. Medieval rabbinic texts, such as the Zohar, preserved a fascinating tradition. They suggest that at the end of time, the real name of Helel Ben Shachar would be revealed again, not to give him power, but so that the righteous could fully understand the nature of their defeat. According to this tradition, knowing its real name is an essential part of the process of spiritual discernment of the last days. Some contemporary theologians argue that we live exactly in this prophetic time. They point to the fact that after centuries of obscurity, modern Bible studies are rediscovering and publicly making available knowledge that were previously restricted to specialized academic circles. The question that remains is this revelation a part of the divine plan for the last times? Or are we inadvertently opening spiritual doors that should remain closed? But now we get to the most important point. What does this revelation about Helel Ben Shachar mean to your spiritual life today? How can this ancient knowledge transform your way of discerning true and falsified light into a world that seems increasingly confusing? First, consider this deep truth. If Helel Ben Shachar was originally the son of dawn, then his greatest ability is not to create obvious darkness, but mimic the divine light perfectly. This means that not every spiritual awakening comes from God. Not every lighting that seems heavenly has heavenly origin. Helel still operates as a dawn announcer, but now announces a false dawn. Think of your own spiritual journey. How many times have you been attracted to experiences or teachings that seemed bright, high, almost divine, but gradually moved him away from the simplicity of the gospel? This is the signature of Helel Ben Shachar. He has no obvious darkness, but corrupted light that seems more sophisticated, more enlightened than Christ's simple truth. In John 8:12, Jesus declares, "I am the light of the world. Who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Note that Jesus did not say, "I am a light." He said, "I am the light." There is only a true source of spiritual light. Everything else, as bright as it may seem, is either reflecting this true light or falsification of it. Now you understand why knowing the real name of Helel Ben Shachar is so important. Not to fear it, but to discern him. When you understand that he was the son of the dawn, corrupted, you develop a new spiritual sensitivity. You stop looking for only obvious manifestations of evil and begin to test all the light you find. 1 John 4:1 warns us, "Beloved, do not believe in every spirit, but prove if the spirits are of God." How do you prove if a spiritual light is true? Ask yourself, this experience, this teaching, this revelation brings me closer to the person of Jesus Christ or offers me an alternative path to God? Helel Ben Shachar always offers spiritual shortcuts that surround the cross. Does God allow you to know truths like this about Helel Ben Shachar by chance? Or is he preparing his church for a time when discernment between true and falsified light will be a matter of life or spiritual death? In Matthew 24:24, Jesus warned that false Messiah and false prophets will arise by operating great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, the elected ones themselves. Think of implication. If even the elected can be deceived, then the mistake will not be obvious. It will be sophisticated, attractive, seemingly spiritual. It will be a false dawn announced by the one who was once the true announcer of Aurora. Should this terrify it? Absolutely not. Should equip it. When you understand the strategy, you are no longer vulnerable to it. When you know that Helel Ben Shachar was originally a corrupted light being, you develop a discernment that goes beyond appearances. In Ephesians 6:11, Paul instructs us to coat the armor of God, to resist the silated astutes of the devil. The word astutes here, in the original Greek, is methodeia, sophisticated methods, elaborate strategies. Helel Ben Shachar does not use obvious methods. It uses methodically planned methods to imitate divine light. So, how does this manifest practically in your life? Let's be specific. Helel Ben Shachar, the corrupted son of dawn, operates through spiritual experiences that seem authentic, but gradually replace Christ as the center of his faith. Observe these standards on your own journey. Have you ever been attracted to teachings that promise to arouse your inner divinity? For practices that offer enlightenment through specific techniques rather than through the grace of Christ? For special revelations that make you feel spiritually superior to ordinary Christians? These are echoes of Helel Ben Shachar's original strategy. In 2 Timothy 4:3-4, Paul prophesies, "For time will come when they will not suffer sound doctrine, but having itch in the ears will hud up doctors according to their own lusts, and divert the ears from the truth, returning to the fables." Note that they do not say they will reject all spirituality. Says they will seek doctrines that feed their desires, including the desire to feel special, enlightened, superior. Helel Ben Shachar's falsified light always appeals to the spiritual ego. She whispers, "You can be like God, knowing good and evil." Genesis 3:5. The same lie that worked in Eden still works today, only with more sophisticated garments. But here is a truth that can transform your life. When you understand that Jesus Christ is the only true morning star, Revelation 22:16, you develop an infallible pattern of discernment. Every genuine spiritual experience will lead you closer to Christ, not of yourself. All true revelation will magnify Jesus, not his own power or spiritual knowledge. Ask yourself honestly, have your deepest spiritual experiences increased your dependence on Christ or your confidence in yourself? Did they make him more humble before the cross or more convinced of his own enlightenment? The difference between true and falsified light is not in the intensity of experience, but in the fruit it produces in its character. In 1 Corinthians 4:5, Paul reminds us that God will bring to light the hidden things of darkness and manifest the designs of hearts. This is exactly what is happening when you know truths like Helel Ben Shachar. God is bringing to light knowledge that have been hidden so that you may have discernment in the final days. Consider this practical application. The next time you feel attracted to a illuminating spiritual experience, pause and ask, does it make me want to worship Jesus Christ more intensely or make me feel that I found something beyond or superior to Christ? If the answer is the second option, you may be facing a counterfeit dawn announced by Helel Ben Shachar. But don't live in fear. In 1 John 4:4, we read, "Greater is what is in you than what is in the world." The true light of Christ in you is infinitely more powerful than any fake light. Knowledge about Helel Ben Shachar should not generate paranoia, but balanced discernment. Philippians 1:9-10 offers a perfect prayer for these times. And I ask this, may your love grow more and more in science and in all knowledge, so that the excellent things are approved in order to be sincere and without scandal until the day of Christ. You need love growing in knowledge, no cold knowledge, but knowledge seasoned by the love of Christ. The truth about Helel Ben Shachar does not diminish the power of God. It reveals the depth of Christ's victory. Not only did he beat any enemy, he won the one who once was the most glorious advertiser of divine light. This makes the victory even more complete, even more glorious.